Work from homers. Naresh and I are trying out a new app called Wisdom and want our listeners to come hang out with us for half an hour. We'll be doing our session with listeners on Wednesday, December 22nd at 5 p.m. Eastern. Our breakout room will be called Work From Home Show. If you can't find us with that, look for something very similar. If you want to join us, download the Wisdom app on the Apple Store completely free, and we will see you on Wednesday, December 22nd.
Forced to work from home by your employer? Laid off or feeling depressed at home? Do you want to make money working from anywhere? We'll show you how to do it from your couch. It's time for another episode of the Work From Home Show. Coming to you from their homes in Austin, Texas and Tampa, Florida, here are your hosts, Adam and Naresh.
Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Work From Home Show. I'm Naresh with Adam Schrader. I would like to once again welcome all of the homies, homeboys, homegirls, home trans, all the work from homers out there. Today we have an interview with Dr. Stephen Porges. Dr. Porges is the Distinguished University Scientist at the Kinsey Institute, as well as professor in the Department of Psychiatry at the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill, UNC Tar Heels. Not the biggest fan of them, but that's okay. Former director of the Brain Body Center in the Department of Psychiatry at the University of Illinois at Chicago. Former president of the Society for Psychophysiological Research, and he was former president of the Federation of Behavioral, Psychological, and Cognitive Sciences, now called the Federation of Associations in Behavioral and Brain Sciences. Basically, Dr. Porges is a very accomplished, well-known psychiatrist. That's the easy way to put it. He's also the best-selling author of the Polyvagal Theory in Therapy, Engaging the Rhythm of Regulation, the Pocket Guide to the Polyvagal Theory, the Transformative Power of Feeling Safe, and the Polyvagal Theory, Neurophysiological Foundations of Emotions, Attachment, Communication, and Self-Regulation. Dr. Stephen Porges, thank you so much for joining us on the Work From Home Show. Welcome.
Thank you, Naresh. One bit of disclosure. I'm not a psychiatrist. I was a professor of psychiatry, and I still am, but I am a PhD. My degree is in science. Before there was neuroscience, it was biological psychology.
Okay, that's a very good distinction to make, because reading your bio, someone would have assumed that you're a psychiatrist, but you are actually a PhD. Good to know.
Yeah. Good to know. Well, in the world of PhDs, we view medical degrees as being a little bit too applied. So we're very happy within our niche.
Yeah. Well, let's start the discussion, Dr. Porges, by talking about living longer and healthier. So you talk about the rhythm of regulation. Tell us what that is and how we can engage our own rhythm of regulation to live longer and healthier lives.
I think the first point is to realize that bodies were evolved with threat. Our bodies evolved to heal and to grow and to explore and to be generative and creative, not in states of threat. We're actually in this duality of life, and that is to protect ourselves, but our bodies know that when we're safe, that's where everything happens, the good stuff. So the uniqueness of human type of mammal is that our social behavior, how we regulate with other people, how we feel good and comfortable, is actually a biobehavioral response. It's not merely social, it's physiological. So through social interactions, through co-regulation, I should say, social interactions regulating our physiology towards a more healthful state.
So what is the polyvagal theory?
The polyvagal theory really has several features to it. I would say the most important one is that it basically explains the evolutionary journey of vertebrates to become social mammals, from social organisms to mammals, and mammals to, in a sense, calm their defenses. So polyvagal theory is a theory that emphasizes that literally our goal in life is sociality. Our goal in life is to be safe with others and to be connected. The theory identifies an important point that our physiological state is an intervening variable, and this may not make sense to people. So think about it. The way your body feels today, if you feel like your heart is beating, you feel anxious, the world appears to you to be very different than when your body feels calm and safe. Our physiology biases how we react to people, how we react to the world. So polyvagal theory emphasizes that physiological state that is determining how we react to individuals, merely our intentionality or our cognitions.
Well, I think this is an important theory to understand and recognize, especially in this post-pandemic world where so many people have been in isolation and working from home, and the social events, the parties, the gatherings are gone. And that idea of emotional health and sociability has somewhat withered away. So what's your advice? How do you apply polyvagal theory to our current situation?
Well, first of all, we have to understand what the pandemic has done to our physiology. The pandemic is a chronic threat. And so our bodies move into a state of defensiveness, which biases react to the other people and events in our world, become more tentative or concerned with injury, and we misinterpret what people may be saying, even if they're saying it through email, texting, or through video conferencing. We may be, in a sense, a little bit too reactive. So the issue is our bodies are under a state of threat, so we are retuned to those threats. However, the pandemic creates a paradox. The pandemic says to be safe, you can't interact. But through the evolutionary history, mammals and especially humans felt under threat. How do they mitigate that threat or those feelings of threat? Connection. So when we don't feel safe, we engage with other people, we interact. We say, how do you feel? And we hug or we give some type of support. But during the pandemic, we're in this paradoxical situations, body craving for that interaction, make us feel safe. But the bodies that would make us feel safe may, in a sense, bearing threat because of the virus. Paradox.
You're partnering with Indiana University to do a COVID-19 survey. Have y'all started looking at any of the early results that are coming in, and what are y'all seeing from that?
Well, actually, the first part of the study has been published in a journal called Frontiers. And there are a couple of very interesting things that have come out, because we're asking questions not about those who got the disease, but whether being in a pandemic was related to worrying about it, was it giving you PTSD symptoms, or anxiety symptoms, or depressive symptoms. We found some very interesting things. The individual's history of adverse events, childhood trauma, or even events that have occurred during their adulthood, and more adversity that they had dealt with, had their reactions to COVID or dysregulating. So in a sense, a pre-existing condition, be emotionally and psychologically disrupted by COVID, was whether or not they had a trauma history. And I imagine when the research is finally done after the pandemic, find out that those who are more vulnerable to complications and to death from COVID will also have been individuals who had an adversity history. Adversity history retunes our autonomic nervous system. Also what the study showed, it showed that those who had more adversity history had an autonomic nervous system, and we got this information through surveys about how they felt about their body reactions. They had physiological states more chronically in the state of threat. People listening will not think of a system as being under threat. Words like people felt very stressed. When we use words like feeling stressed, what are we really saying? We're saying that our physiology is reacting as if it were under threat. Same commonality. So the underlying theme of this podcast about balancing health and longevity, our bodies are under threat. physiology, the nervous system regulating that physiology support growth and restoration. So by being in states of chronic threat or chronic stress, they're retuning our nervous system towards disease. The papers the study we did showed that if you had adversity history and it retuned your autonomic nervous system, your outcomes were very poor. If you had adversity history and your autonomic nervous system still had features of resilience, the effect of the effect of your adversity experiences matter. They affect you. It's that adversity history, if it retunes our body, then that retuned body becomes vulnerable. In the workplace, we see this every day. We see it in social environments that there are people who are fragile and they're hyperreactive, misinterpret what you're saying. Often there is something in their historical background where their nervous system has retuned and become more acutely aware or reactive to threats, and as opposed to just like blowing it off and being resilient.
How can polyvagal theory be used to treat anxiety, depression, trauma, autism? I believe you cover even more.
Well, we have to say, how does polyvagal theory inform individuals who may have these disorders or therapists who may be treating this disorder? Because what polyvagal theory gives you is an understanding that aspects of these disorders are accompanied with an autonomic nervous system physiology that has moved into a threat state. Once you understand that it's the physiology is there to protect you, then the real therapeutic strategy is how to shift that physiology. Not how do you talk out all the symptoms of your traumas or your history, but how can we get your physiology more resilient? And there's actually an interesting secret about how our nervous system evolved. Our nervous system evolved to detect cues of safety, to turn off reactions of threat. So when a baby is crying, it wants to hear its mother's melodic voice. There are things that have to occur in the environment to enable the body, the physiology of the individual to feel safe. It's not like saying, you're safe. That doesn't work. It's like saying, are you depressed? Why aren't you happy? Types of signals to a person are not helpful. The issue is the person has to feel safe in the environment. Some therapists are what I call super co-regulators. Their presence with another person in that person to feel safe. Therefore, in the safety that the therapist is providing, become accessible. They become a human being.
When it comes to the polyvagal theory, is this COVID-19 and the threat of the threat of being around other people and getting the virus, is this going to be a big enough thing that it's going to impact us as a society moving forward in terms of feeling secure around other people?
It's a powerful thing to think about. Let's talk about the positive attributes that's going on. Let's really discuss it in a different way. What has the pandemic taught most of us? It's taught us what's important in our lives. That assuming that we are financially stable and healthy tells us that there's something else that we need in our lives. Relationships. So it's not like we need more money, or some people may need it. Money and acquisition of stuff, what our nervous system equates as feeling safe. So I think the pandemic has helped many people prioritize what's important to them, meaning what's important to their body.
What's the connection between the polyvagal theory, what you've discussed today, and creativity, innovation, and entrepreneurship, so we can help our listeners who are investors and entrepreneurs at home?
We could also say, what's the relationship between polyvagal theory and duality? It's really, the issue is that if your body is safe, your nervous system has the options of being creative and, in a sense, going to different places than being on a conscious hypervigilance of potential threats. When our bodies are not under constant threat, we can be the creative tools that we evolve to become. The important point is that we can't access areas of our nervous system, certain parts of our brain. The nervous system is cued to be in a state of defense. States of defense have their priority. Out, something's going to happen, you're going to get hurt. But if your body is now safe and you're accessible to people around you, creativity will spontaneously emerge.
So what can we do as individuals to kind of turn off the scared part of our things and make ourselves feel safer and more open to the creativity?
Well, I think this is a classic problem. It's also related to vulnerability to physical illness, because this creativity in a safe body creativity is not going to occur easily in a body that's ill. How do we turn off the threat? We certainly can't say, don't be scared. Body doesn't like being some mandates. It doesn't find being told not to be frightened as a cue of safety. We have to know what bodies need to feel safe. In terms of human voices, the intonation of a voice is powerful. We see this with a baby and the mother. If a baby's crying, does the mother speak to the baby? You have a dog. How do you talk to your dog? You use a voice that has lots of prosody, intonation, voice. So the system evolved, like many mammals, to interpret intonation of vocalizations as cues of safety. But the environments that most people work in are not quiet environments, not environments that have prosodic voices. Noisy environments, which the history of humanity, through our evolutionary history, the sounds, often low-frequency sounds of mechanicals and noises, and those sounds are really cues our body of being under threat, to be vigilant so that you can survive.
So it really is it's not what you say, it's how you say it type thing, and when it comes to our evolution?
It's exactly true. The other point is in terms of therapeutic models. If your body is calm, that is the treatment. So the body can do a lot. It can do a lot in terms of creativity. It's not going to be creative through hypervigilance and high levels of agitation or anxiety, because we can only think in very short segments when we're under those types of pressures. We have to have a lot of confidence. Body will enable us to be creative. Body wants in return safety.
Excellent. Well, Dr. Stephen Porges, thanks so much for joining us on the Work From Home show. You are, instead of going through your full bio, your full titles, let's just call you an internationally renowned PhD in psychiatry. Is that what your PhD was?
Well, you could say in
psychology.
I crossed many disciplines, but yeah, I went in psychiatry, but also in other aspects of medicine, physiology and neurophysiology. You can call me a behavioral neuroscientist, and I'm comfortable with any title.
Okay, well, check out his books on Amazon. They're all about the polyvagal theory. Just type in Stephen, S-T-E-P-H-E-N, Porges, P-O-R-G-E-S, or polyvagal theory into Amazon. I'm sure he's probably the number one expert in that. So
yeah,
many.
He also mentioned that we launched our not-for-profit Polyvagal Institute, and that's polyvagalinstitute.org.
Polyvagalinstitute.org. There's also polyvagal.org. I think that goes to polyvagalinstitute.org probably. But there's also StephenPorges.com.
Right, it's StephenPorges.com. We'll have materials and we'll give you links to YouTubes and other things.
Good. Okay, StephenPorges.com, polyvagal.org. Any final thoughts you want to share with our listeners, Dr. Porges?
Well, I think the times are changing, and living at home and working at home is a complicated mix, because our bodies often like a definition between work and play. And during the work and home period, I'm finding for myself a difficulty in remembering how to play. You play, you are just doing that. You're not working and trying to find moments in between. Our bodies like to interact with other human beings. We like that. We are a social mammal. We need to respect that. We don't need to be social all the time. We, in a sense, need doses of sociality to maintain our mental health. The point I really want to emphasize is that with physical health and mental health, they're functionally the same. Our nervous system in states of threat, and then the consequences of being in that disruptive state on our bodily organs. Creativity, safety, social interaction, the pathways and of the journey. That's the journey of becoming a successful human being.
We talk about the sociability, and for introverts, people who maybe might be quiet in nature or just not very social, they're not comfortable in group settings, social settings. What's your advice to them? Do they really want that companionship or that sociability, or are they just happy being isolated?
You need to actually find what you mean by these statements of people. A person who's introverted doesn't mean they don't want relationships. They may not like crowds and noise. People who like to have all this activity around them may not be safe, accessible when they calm down. You have to understand the strategies that individuals are taking to optimize who they are based upon their own history. So if a person has let's just term a trauma history where they were injured when they were younger, or they were injured from some relationships, bodies will not want to calm down. They may end up being active. So paradoxically, individuals who maintain this high level of mobilization are the ones who can't really form strong relationships, while those who you think are introverted and don't want to have all this activity around them, they may be titrating the activity just perfectly for who they are. And those who are taking the high levels of activity, also using those high levels of activity to keep their bodies mobilized, because when their bodies aren't mobilized, they start feeling vulnerability, remembering at a logical level injury.
Great. Dr. Stephen Porges. Thanks for joining us on the Work From Home Show. We greatly appreciate it. And to all our listeners, check us out, workfromhomeshow.com. If you have any questions, hello@workfromhomeshow.com. Go on iTunes, TuneIn, Stitcher, Spotify, whatever podcasting platforms you listen to us. Leave us a review. Take a screenshot of that review. Send it to us at hello@workfromhomeshow.com. We'll send you a goodie or something else for free. And until next time, keep on working from home.
Hey, work from homers, Adam Schrader here. We love bringing you this podcast, and thousands of you have proven that it's been helpful for you. But since time and online storage space aren't free, Naresh and I wanted to come to you personally to ask for your financial support through Patreon. Go to patreon.com/workfromhomeshow and help support the show. And we appreciate your support at any amount you choose.